Get started now. Hello again, everyone, and welcome. My name is Claire Christian. I'm the Executive Director of the Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition. And our mission as an organization is to protect the wildlife and environment of Antarctica. And because of that, we wanted to create a whole new holiday to celebrate the biggest superheroes of Antarctica, and that's krill. Because so many species in Antarctica depend on krill for their survival, but they don't always get the attention that they deserve. Most people are focused on penguins and whales and seals and all those big and beautiful and amazing creatures that we can see easily on land. So we thought it was time that we gave krill their own day. And for that celebration, we're very excited to have author Matt Lilley here with us, because he has written a whole book about krill, because he also recognizes how important they are, and he is going to read that story today. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt and let him tell us all about good eating.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much to everyone here on this first ever World Krill Day. Thank you to Claire and ASOC for making this happen. This is really neat. I wanted to start by talking about how I came to write Good Eating. Good Eating is the first children's book all about Antarctic krill, and it sounds like kind of a strange topic at first until you learn a little about krill. My own journey to krill started with my two personal favorite topics to write about, Antarctica and birds. And you put those two topics together and you get penguins. I wrote my first penguin manuscript over 10 years ago. But it's not just penguins that live down there. There are a lot of seabirds in the Southern Ocean. There are albatross, terns, petrels. Just one example, all around Antarctica, there are these amazing birds called snow petrels. You don't hear much about them. They are white like the snow. They can nest hundreds of miles inland on the continent. And for defense, they can projectile vomit fish oil. If anyone needs a snow petrel manuscript, I've got one. And now, every time I write about an animal that lives down there, I come across krill. A lot of those animals eat krill, and if they don't eat krill, then they eat something else that does eat krill. So writing about those animals led me to krill. After just a little research, I knew that they needed their own book. They are cool, weird, amazing creatures. So I hope that Good Eating can give people a better understanding of the Southern Ocean ecosystem, and hopefully with better understanding, people will be more motivated to protect what's down there. So with that, let's start our story. Okay. All right, Good Eating, the short life of krill. Hey, egg, what are you doing? Are you sinking? A sinking egg. For many days, you sink. You sink a mile down, and you keep going down, down, until you wiggle, you stretch, you push, you hatch. You're not an egg anymore. You're kind of a sphere. After a while, you grow into kind of an oval. Are those arms? You are a six-armed oval. You grow pokey spines, but what are you? What are you doing now? You swim up a bit, then rest, up, then rest. For your new body, you grow a new shell. After a few weeks, this shell breaks apart and you come out changed. You grow more spines, but now what are you? You still have no mouth. Aren't you getting hungry? Maybe you're not hungry yet, but those fish down there look hungry. What do they eat? Better not think about that. Just keep swimming, up, 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 and growing. For your new body, you grow a new shell. How are you doing all this growing without eating? And are you breaking out of your shell again? It sure looks like you are. Your shell breaks apart again, and you come out changed. You grow a face, sort of, about time. You have 2 eyes now and a mouth. And to go with your new mouth, a stomach. Splash! You've reached the surface. In about 4 weeks, you swam almost 2 miles up. Now you are hungry. What are you hungry for? Any plant or animal small enough to fit into that new mouth of yours. Glub, glub, glub. You eat all the smallest things. You eat, and swim, 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 and grow. You grow another new shell. Then you eat, grow, swim, and swim, grow, eat. This is what you're good at. Is there anything else that you do? Watch out, penguins. What are they looking at? Oh, you've done such a good job eating that your stomach looks green. You're kind of standing out in the crowd. Those penguins look hungry too, but they don't eat what you eat. Maybe you should swim somewhere else. Keep swimming. To give those penguins some space, you swim farther down. One day your shell cracks again and you come out changed. Your eyes are sticking out. You're getting more legs there. Nice. What have you turned into this time? And what will you do now? Swim, swim, swim. You weigh more than water, which means if you stop swimming, you sink. So you almost never stop swimming. You look kind of buggy, but you're not a bug. You look kind of shrimpy, but you're not a shrimp. You are a krill. You swim and eat and swim, and grow. Do what you're good at. Over many weeks, you crack out of your shell a few more times. Doesn't that ever get old? Until you're almost full grown. You have all of your 26 legs now. With your front legs, you can scrape food from underneath the sea ice. Or you can make a net for catching food. No one else can eat quite like you. Your stomach is showing. Whenever you eat enough plants, you turn green. And you have spots on you that light up. You can make your own light. And look, there are tons of krill just like you. There are 1 million, maybe 1 million million. How much is 1 million million? Let's call it a krillion. You and your fellow krill are the world's best eaters. You're all so good at eating, you turned all that tiny food into you. Watch out though, there are a lot of other hungry creatures around. When they see you, they see food. Seafood. On the surface, seabirds swoop down for you. Under the ice, penguins plunge for you. Down deep, seals might devour you. And then there are the whales. Whales are the world's biggest creatures. No one is bigger than a blue whale. They are so big, you might think they only eat big stuff. Actually, blue whales eat small stuff, like you. I hate to break this to you. You're pretty small yourself, and blue whales eat stuff your size. Only it takes a lot of you guys to feed a whale. 1 million of you might make a meal for one hungry whale. Hey, you got away? You didn't get eaten? Well then, keep eating. All right, I'm not gonna read the back matter, I don't think. So there you go.
Well, thank you very much. Before we move on to the origami demonstration, Matt, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions, and if anybody watching wants to ask questions, you can put it in the Q&A box. We have time to take a couple of those. And I guess my first question is, since we're talking about krill today, do you have a favorite krill fact?
There's a lot of cool krill facts. I think one of them is how they can shrink if there's not enough food. They don't just get skinny, they actually get smaller.
Yeah.
And then another fact I love is how much carbon they pull out of the environment. They molt their whole lives, which is rare for a crustacean. And in their shell, there's carbon, and then in their poop too, there's a lot of carbon that gets sunk.
Yeah. which is very good for the health of our planet too. So yeah, I think my favorite krill fact is that if you weighed all the Antarctic krill in the world, they would weigh as much as or more as all the humans in the world, just about. So that's a lot of,
Yeah.
small crustaceans. It's a pretty impressive amount. So you also mentioned that you are really drawn to Antarctica, and I wonder, a lot of people are fascinated by Antarctica. So what's something that what's one of the things that most fascinates you about Antarctica? I know you mentioned the wildlife, but also in addition to that.
Yeah. Well, it's just such a wild, remote place, probably the most wild, remote place on Earth. In addition to the unique wildlife, all the science that's down there, it's kind of like this just awesome laboratory. So there's just all sorts of fascinating stuff happening down there all the time.
Yeah, and some people are lucky enough to go down there and live and discover cool things about the environment and about penguins and about krill. And it's a fun job, but it's a tough job because you have to live in Antarctica for a long time to do that. Okay, we got a couple questions. Let's see, we got a question from Mary York. Hi, Matt. Do you have any plans to visit Antarctica?
Hi, Mary. I don't. I wish I did. I really hope someday, but it's hard to get down there.
Yeah. It is hard to get down there, but there are people who go down there every year, and sometimes they even get to see krill, even though krill are in the water. Because an unfortunate thing for the krill is that there's an island where there's a volcano underneath the surface, so the water gets hot. So sometimes the krill get cooked in the hot water because of the energy coming up, the heat coming up from that volcano, and they will wash up on the beach fully cooked, which is a shame. But sometimes people get to see those. Next question. Is climate change affecting krill at all? Do you want to start that, Matt?
I can start with what I know. One of the scariest things that I didn't know when I was working on the book, but learned later, is that the acidification could actually make it so they think the adult krill can survive in a more acidic ocean, but the larva they don't think can handle it. So and the climate change is causing that acidification too, and that's really scary.
Yeah, that is a very important thing that is happening to krill, and also just generally climate change does definitely affect krill. They're very sensitive to changes in sea ice and changes in the temperature and even just changes in currents and things like that. So yeah, climate change is a big risk. The warming that's happening down in Antarctica is a big risk for krill. And that's a big concern, obviously, because we need krill to be, we need there to be a lot, even though there are a lot of krill, as I said, we need them to be in the same places that all the penguins and whales and fish and all the other animals that eat them are. And some of those areas are also warming fast too, and those species are affected. So there's a lot of different climate change things happening in Antarctica, and yes, krill are definitely affected by that. We have a question from Sherry. Could you mention your illustrator? Did you communicate with the illustrator at all? I think they're awesome. Also, did any illustrations get changed in the process?
Yeah, there's not much communication between the author and the illustrator. Usually the editor is kind of a go-between. So
interesting.
So the illustrator sends in the illustrations, and then I get them, and then I communicate to the editor. But he did a great job. One thing that changed, especially some of the early larval pictures, I felt like weren't realistic enough. He was trying to strike a balance between making them friendly and making them realistic, and they kind of looked like babies to me, like human babies. So I asked if they could try to make them a little more like, the science, like a real krill larva, which are pretty strange looking. And I think he found the right balance between friendly looking krill, but also a little bit more realism.
Yep,
Hi, Sam. Thanks.
yes, there's a hello. Well, thanks for that answer. That's interesting. I've never written or illustrated a book, so I didn't know how to work. So that's interesting. Okay, this will be our last question from Catherine. Are krill found in all of the water surrounding Antarctica or just some part? And you can answer that, and I can also answer if you don't want to answer.
To the best of my knowledge, I don't totally know. I think there are certain areas where there are more of them, especially like where they spawn, stuff like that. But in general, I do think they are found all around.
Yeah, that's right. There are different areas where there are lots more than others. And that's why, there's lots and lots of penguins and whales and seals in the Antarctic Peninsula area, because there's lots of krill there. But yeah, they are found all over, but there are some places where they may not be as all packed together in a swarm. For example, in the Ross Sea, which is a different area of the Antarctic, there's a lot of another species of krill called crystal krill. So there might be more crystal krill than there are Antarctic krill in some parts of the ocean. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of krill, so you'll find them very many places. Okay. Well, thanks so much again for that great story about krill. They have a surprisingly hard life for such a small creature. And now we're going to switch over to an origami demonstration, and I need just a second to switch my camera from focusing on me to focusing on the origami. So just give me a second here, and I will get that ready.
You have scissors and paper, those are good.
Excellent. Yes, you need, if you didn't remember the instructions, you need 6 inches of 6-inch square piece of paper, or about 15 centimeters if you use centimeters, and a pair of scissors. There's also some optional items you can have. This isn't traditional origami in the sense that you do make one cut in the paper. Oh, I gotta turn off my background. So you can draw a little line. I need to draw a little line because I am not very good at drawing straight lines. I'll focus on the paper here. Let's see.
Do you want to be in presenter so that yours is bigger?
Yes, I need to do that. Thank you.
Sure. I'm going to try to do one though.
Okay, there we go. Now I'm a little bigger so you can see me better. Okay, so here is my, I think I see a raised hand. Yes, Sherry, what is your question?
Oh, you're still not larger in presenter, I don't think.
Oh,
she is on mine, she is.
Oh, huh. You're half the screen on mine. That's okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I spotlighted myself, which should make me
I don't know.
big.
Okay, well, I can see still, good enough.
Okay, all right. Well, hopefully you'll be able to, but I also have a video on YouTube that I can that you can find on our social media, and also we can email it out with there'll be a recording of this. There'll be a follow-up email from this webinar, and we can email that. Oh, sorry, my camera. So there's that. So the first thing that you are going to do with your square is you are going to rotate it into the shape of a diamond. And I am going to turn mine over to the red side of the paper because I want the pink side to show. So that's why I did that. And then you are going to fold your diamond in half. And you want to get nice sharp points at either end. So one way to do that is to pinch those corners down before you make the rest of your fold. And then that will help you make a sharper corner at each end. But sometimes you can't make a perfect corner because we don't have a perfect square. Even when you buy origami paper, sometimes it's not a perfect square, even though it's intended to be for origami. So if you can't get it exactly right, that's okay. And another thing about origami is that if this is the first time you're making it, sometimes it's not going to turn out very well. That's also okay, because you just make another one. And for some reason, the second time you make an origami model, usually it turns out much, much better. You just need to get that practice out of the way. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut our antenna. And if you notice, I just drew a line along this side. And so we're going to cut through both layers of the paper, just a thin strip. And it doesn't have to be any particular size. It's kind of up to you, but you don't want it to be too thick because you need most of the paper to stay behind for the body of your krill. And just cut that, but don't cut it all the way off. They need to stay attached to the paper. So don't cut all the way to the end, just cut most of the way to the end. Just like that. And now I am going to switch over to one I already did, because for the next step, I've made some markings on the paper to make it easier to see what I'm doing. So after you've got your antenna, you're going to unfold. Make sure to keep the antenna out of the way as you're folding, because they're thin strips of paper, so they could easily be torn off or crunched up. So just as you're going through these next few steps, make sure that they don't get tangled up in anything. And then you're going to, locate the center of your paper, and then you're going to fold these two edges over towards the center, but not all the way to the center. So what I mean by that is you're just going to leave a little bit of space there, but you're still going to aim for a nice sharp point at the top. So just kind of wiggle the paper around a little bit so that you've got that nice sharp point, but that it's still showing that center crease, because at the end of this, we're going to fold our krill in half along that crease, and it won't fold very easily unless there's a little space left there. So just do that on both sides. And there you go. And just a little pro origami tip. When you're doing origami, you can use an old credit card or an old card. This is my Zip card membership card to help you flatten your folds, but you definitely don't need that. It's totally optional. So for our next step, we are going to fold those edges over towards the center again, but same thing, we're not going to fold all the way to the center. So make sure your center crease is still showing. Sometimes I like to use my other hand to hold this paper still underneath here so it doesn't move around while I'm making my fold. Then you can, again, make a nice crisp point here and then finish your folds. Okay. Now we are going to do a similar fold of these edges towards the center, again, leaving a little space, but as I mentioned before, make sure your antenna don't get too tangled up in that. Just have to work around them. So leaving a little space. And now we have that. So I'll just give folks a second or two to catch up if they need to catch up, because I've made a lot of these, so the more you make, the faster you get. Okay, So for our next step, you're going to locate the widest part of your krill body, which is right around here. And you're going to take this narrow point down here and you're going to fold it up and crease it along that widest point. And you can just kind of, you don't have to have it exact. This is a kind of a fun model because you can play around with it. Sometimes with origami, if you don't get the fold in exactly the right place, it won't work. But this one works. So you have a little bit more freedom than you might normally have. So that's nice, especially if you're not an origami expert. And then what we're going to do for the next step here, after we've made this crease here, you're going to leave a little space and then you're going to fold that point back down. This is called a pleat fold. You're going to crease that again, and we're going to make 3 more of these. So another one up and then down. And while you're doing this, you'll want to make sure that your tail, this part, is still lining up with the top part. So as you can see, my line, I still have a nice straight line here. So you want to aim for that. You can also turn it over and look at how your pleats look and see if they're all kind of roughly even. But honestly, at the end, you kind of pull them out a little bit. So it doesn't matter if they're perfect. You can also just kind of look on this side and see if they're all about the same size. Again, this is a nice model because you don't have to get everything exactly right to have it come out looking like a krill. All right, so now we've done 3. We'll do 1 more. And there you go. Make all of those nice and firmly folded. And give you a second there just to finish making your 4th fold. And now we're going to turn our krill over and fold our krill in half. So there you go. This doesn't look very lifelike though. So we're going to take our krill in both hands. We're going to gently pull the folds you just made out and down. So just out and down, out and down, kind of making a little curved shape. So more like a real life krill. And there we go. There's our nice little curvy krill ready to move. And now we're going to finish the antenna. So for those, you just fold the antenna that you made before. You've got that little edge of paper, so just fold it along that little edge of paper that you have left. Fold the antenna up and do that on both sides. And now you have a krill, and you can add a little eyeball if you like, so that your krill looks even more lifelike. And there you go. That is how you make an origami krill.
Right.
Very good, Matt. Nice work.
Thank you.
That looks, yes, I have to say the antennae are a little bit long. If you want, you can, cut them and make them a little shorter so they're not quite as, so that they stand up a little better. Because they do kind of tend to flop around a little bit. But it's up to you. You can design your own krill the way that you want. And yeah, that's how you make an origami krill. Much easier to obtain than a real krill, although there are some scientists who keep them in an aquarium so they can study them, but most of us will just have to settle for this one, or maybe a little stuffed one like the one that Matt has behind him. So, yeah. But yes, well, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and thank you so much for celebrating World Krill Day with us. And thank you for supporting krill, who are amazing creatures. And we hope that you will, oops, upside down. We hope that you will continue to celebrate World Krill Day in future years. And we hope that you will join us again for more events. And I'd just like to thank Matt again for reading us a fantastic story. And I'd like to thank all of you for listening and following along. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your World Krill Day. And I hope you go out and make a whole swarm of krill so that they will have plenty of friends.
A
Thanks very
krillion?
much.
I said a krillion.
A krillion krill, yes. I've got about 10 so far. I think I just need, you know, a billion or so more, and then it'll be a real krill swarm. So, oh, I see one question. Let's see if I can answer that. Oh, thanks, Sarah and Charlie, and thanks, Molly. And yeah, have a great rest of your day. Happy World Krill Day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.